Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
That's him! He's the one that told me cigarettes were good for you!
God. My goodness. Joe Gimateo.
This podcast is brought to you by milk. Is it a chocolate chip cookie or a hockey puck? It depends. Have you got milk?
At first, whenever he says that, I was like, a hockey puck? What? And then after I thought about it for a couple seconds, I realized. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw at a time. But first, a shout out to a listener in England. This one goes out to Kelly. She's a big fan of the British Bulldog, so we know you're out there. Thank you for tuning in and listening.
And Diana Hart, of course. She's probably a big fan of her.
Yeah.
We saw enough of her tonight.
Yeah.
Sure did.
And it wasn't that hard on the eyes either, if I don't say so myself. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on December 11th, 1995. This Raw was recorded at the... Did you guys hear Vince say it? Because I didn't, and I had to look it up. And it's either Wiko Miko or Wicomico Civic Center. It's got a weird-ass name. The Wicomico Civic Center in Salisbury, Maryland. And features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then. Let's get into it. Tonight, ER comes to Monday Night Raw as Bob Backlund is the carrier of an infectious disease.
Are we not sure he is the infectious disease?
He's infecting all of us.
Just when I was hoping to have Dr. Jeff Unger here to maybe hopefully tell us that Backlund has mad cow or some other kind of prion disease, we're told that the infection is the chicken wing. The infectious disease analogy continues throughout. This was poorly done puns. Also tonight, Shawn Michaels will be taking a break from Railing Sonny just long enough to talk to us for the first time since his collapse in the ring. After the Nitro Light intro, this is the go-home show for In Your House 5. Somehow, Bret Hart taking on Bob Backlund tonight is to get us ready for Bret's match with the British Bulldog there on the pay-per-view. But also, Diesel's name gets tossed into the mix in relation to Bret, as in, if Diesel and Bret are in the same building, watch out, for some reason. But barely a word about the Bulldog, relatively speaking, the actual opponent for the championship title, not Backlund or Diesel. As we're learning about the plans for the evening, I began involuntarily breaking my fucking neck as high energy hits the house PA system and takes us into our first match of the night. Owen Hart, with Jim Cornette, Yokozuna, and Mr. Fuji, defeat Jeff Hardy by pinfall in 2 minutes and 37 seconds. First off, Ryan, where in our archives can our listeners find the Jobber of the Week segment on Jeff Hardy?
Jeff Hardy was our Jobber of the Week back in our July 3rd, 1995 episode of Wrasslin Raw.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Back in the ring, this match was working pretty well right from the start. It's obvious, watching some of these older matches, that Jeff Hardy would become a future superstar. His skill and ring work have grown by leaps and bounds just over the course of us doing this podcast, and working with a gifted wrestler like Owen Hart only makes things look that much better. Jeff selling for Owen, fantastic. He really laid it all out there on all of these moves that these two were working through. I have to admit, though, I was pretty annoyed by the cut to Diesel watching the match from backstage, as well as the split screen to show Diana, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith's wife, in the audience. I get that there are plot devices, but really, you should take that to mean that this match was just that damn good, and I did not want to have these distractions away from it. Owen Hart suplexing Jeff Hardy, only to jump up and yell, "Everybody loves me!" was just perfection. And my God, the sell of the clothesline followed up by a missile drop kick that looked fantastic from Owen, and then a cocky rollover pin, complete with shit-eating grin. We get the 1, 2, 3 and the victory, and one hell of a good jobber match out of this. The in-ring action doesn't end there, though, as Owen calls in Yoko to give Jeff a banzai drop. Yokozuna went to the second rope for it, and got some serious height on this. I had to go back and rewind because I was shocked at how much air Yokozuna got doing this banzai drop. And not just that he didn't just completely explode both of his knees on the landing. And then Owen goes to put the sharpshooter on Jeff, which brings Diesel out. Remember, he had been watching backstage this whole time. Owen quickly exits the ring, but Yoko isn't as fast, and Diesel and Yoko go at it. Vince McMahon is insufferable in commentary here, saying the phrase "Big Daddy Cool Diesel" as many times as possible. Joe, I could have watched this match all night long, and the finish afterwards did a fair job of getting me excited about what I was watching. What did you think about our opener here?
Yeah, you know it's going to be a good one with Owen Hart and Jeff Hardy. My first thought when Owen was coming out to the ring is, does he really need this whole brigade of people still? I kind of want Owen to sort of be on his own, or maybe just with Jim Cornette. But, you know, Yoko's out there, and was Fuji there too? If I remember right, I think he was maybe there. So, you know, there's this big crowd of people. I actually thought this was a tag match when he was coming out. I thought it was going to be a tag match and then realized, oh, it's just a singles. Jeff Hardy doesn't look like a jobber. I mean, we've said that over and over again every time we see him. He just looks really young. Like, he just looks like a kid in there, you know, compared to some of these other jobbers that we're used to seeing. He's very, very young. The whole thing with Diana, like, I'm a little confused with that because Davey Boy is a heel right now. So I'm not sure where they're going with that. I understood how they got her involved in their match a few years ago in England, but this time, I don't know. It just it's not really making sense. The match itself, I mean, like you said, Bartlett, the match was great and definitely wish it was a little bit longer, to be honest. The banzai drop on Jeff Hardy, I feared for both men, both Yokozuna and Jeff Hardy. Thank God no damage was done there. And Yoko can still move pretty well, but he should not be doing banzai drops on anyone. Diesel, I have to say, so far with this version of Diesel, I don't hate it so far.
Complete agreement here with you guys on any match that we've seen with Jeff Hardy. I know we're going to be kind of sounding like we're repeating ourselves from the last time we saw him, but the guy just doesn't perform like a jobber in there, regardless that he's only 17 at the time or whatever. Even at the beginning, we get a couple decent chain of moves out of Jeff Hardy. It all starts with a perfectly timed leapfrog. And then Owen reverses it with this great looking knee to the stomach that Hardy does like a full flip in midair from this knee. And it was just everything they were doing just was on point. I think that one of the clear things was when Jeff was whipped into the corner. You know, this is a small thing, but just the way he sold how tired and beat up, he made it believable. And that's something that why people stay jobbers, right? Because they can't break that wall where what they're doing in the ring ever looks real. It just, you could always tell it's a work. But with Jeff, at such a young age, he's doing a great job. I mean, he has the advantage of working with Owen Hart here, one of the best in the game, but he definitely brought his A game as well in this match. And I agree that I wish it was longer. It was actually a little bit longer than your typical jobber match. What was it? Close to 3 minutes, right?
Yeah, clocked in, 2.5, 2:37.
All right, a little bit longer than your typical jobber match, but definitely could have had a lot more of it. I also agree with the stuff at the end of it. I didn't mind either. Getting Yoko involved and Diesel. Big Daddy Cool, Big Daddy Cool. Did you get that? Big Daddy Cool? But outside of that, I thought that it still did a good job of setting them up and kind of giving Jeff Hardy even a little bit more time in the ring here. And I think this is the first successful bonsai drop we've seen out of Yoko since he come back.
Yeah.
I know he's attempted it once or twice, but he's never landed it, I don't believe. I know we were all worried about Jeff Hardy's safety on this, but I know from, just listening to different shoot interviews and whatnot, I've heard on many occasions that Yoko was one of the safest guys in the ring, and that even this bonsai drop, you didn't feel it. I'm sure his knees did, but I guess, Hardy was in good hands with Yoko because he was a really gentle guy for being 600 pounds.
Well, one thing that you can't really fake in this is once Yoko, works the banzai drop and there's that sound of the impact, he definitely kicks his legs out a little bit and puts all of his weight to sit on Hardy.
Oh, sure. You gotta make it look real.
You can't fake the 600 pounds sitting on the middle of your torso at that point. That must have been fucking torture.
The girth. You can't fake the girth.
Joe, with you, I agree. I'm not exactly hating Diesel in his tweener role here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that I was having just a teensy bit of trouble with was how, I understand that Owen Hart is going to be taking on Big Daddy Cool Diesel here in your house 5.
Who? Sorry?
This just didn't, I don't know. There's something about this that to me came across as maybe trying to take it away from Owen a little bit and make Big Daddy Cool Diesel, who, as we all know, is no longer the typical babyface, the hero here. Why does the anti-hero need to act this way? And again, I'm not hating this. I was just a little confused as to why Big Daddy Cool, I don't have any friends unless they're wearing the black glove, gives a shit about Jobber Jeff Hardy. Not too much of a shit, however.
Maybe Jeff Hardy was donning the black gloves backstage.
We don't know that, though, and the viewers wouldn't have either. And, what adds to this is that this is kind of like, it gets back to Crush and Savage 2 years ago with Yoko and these banzai drops. It didn't matter that Yoko was going to do a second rope banzai drop on Jeff Hardy and literally squish the guts out of his orifices. But man, whenever Owen Hart went to put on that sharpshooter, that was the line. Just like 4 banzai drops on Crush, that was okay. But the 5th one, that was drawing the line and had to draw Savage in. Like I said, I'm not hating this, but just all these little things are just kind of confusing to me about it. The other thing that I'm really glad you mentioned, Ryan, is Jeff Hardy selling the Irish whips to the corner. He sold it like a Hart.
Yeah, he did.
There's no better way I can think of to put it. The Hart brothers, as we've talked about before, the way they sell those whips to the corner and just throw all of their weight into hitting the turnbuckles, almost ragdolling themselves into it. It makes you wonder if Jeff Hardy maybe had a little talk with Owen before this match to kind of get that
pointers
down. Yeah, absolutely. What better person to learn from?
Yeah.
And if he's of the mindset to be asking advice of the Hart brothers, no wonder he ended up a superstar in the future.
Agree.
We get told then, back in Raw here, up next is Petting Zoo, interviewing Shawn Michaels. But that's just a swerve, bro, because we come back from the commercial break to the start of our next match. Aja Kong defeats Chaparita Asari by pinfall in 4 minutes and 21 seconds. And Chaparita Asari is our jobber of the week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Bartlett. Chaparita Asari is this week's jobber. I'm going to apologize in advance. Asari appears to be a very well-established wrestler in Japan with a great many matches, but there's not much information in English, unfortunately. So I just want to apologize that this will be a relatively short jobber of the week, even though her career was anything but. Asari was born Masabi Watanabe on September 15th, 1973 in Tokyo, Japan, and was trained by the New Japan Wrestling Dojo. She made her in-ring debut for New Japan Wrestling on February 21st, 1993 against Rhea Tamada. The match ended in a draw. Asari was known for her two signature moves, the corkscrew moonsault and the handspring mule kick, both which we will see in this upcoming match.
Okay.
After her debut, she would continue wrestling mainly for New Japan Wrestling up until January of 98, only wrestling with the WWF for this match and the one at Survivor Series that we already saw where she teamed up with Alundra Blaze. Asari would then return to New Japan Wrestling after the WWF completely canned the women's division. In late January of 98, Asari began wrestling for Neo Women's Pro Wrestling, based out of Yokohama, Japan. She stayed with Neo Wrestling until her retirement on May 5th, 2003, defeating Kyoko in her final match. Chaparita Asari's record? Get this. 438 wins, 483 losses, 30 draws, which technically makes her a jobber, losing 50.8% of her matches. I mean, there was times where she had 2-3 matches a day. I mean, this is just insane.
Yeah.
My God. I mean, I wasn't smart enough to crunch the numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's over 900 matches total career.
You're approaching 1,000 matches there. Yeah.
My God.
I was expecting to hear a little bit of a gymnastics background of some sort.
I'm sorry, I did leave that out. She did have a bit of a gymnastics background. That is what she started with before she got into wrestling.
Based on what we see in the ring, that's not surprising.
Especially that corkscrew moonsault.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Illuminating as always. Back in the match, right off the bat, those aforementioned gymnastics. What did you say these two particular moves here were that she kicked it off with?
The one that you're going to see right at the beginning is the handspring mule kick.
Uh-huh.
And then towards the end, she will miss a corkscrew moonsault.
Okay. The first one, I labeled it as gymnastics because I honestly didn't know what to call it. And the other one I had labeled as a corkscrew splash. But yeah, moonsault, much better. Right off the bat here in the match, the gymnastics from Asari were impressive as far as her ability goes. But it really didn't seem like the most appropriate way to start a match against such a massive shmoo like Aja Kong.
She looks like a bowling pin.
Yeah, they mentioned that a few times here in the match. I was definitely impressed, though, when Asari attempted a crossbody off the ropes that Kong no-selled. And by no-sell, I mean she didn't budge a fucking inch. Asari literally hit Kong like a bird hitting a window and dropping. I really wish I had better numbers as to what the weight differences are here. Aja Kong is a bit of a big girl and Asari pretty small, so it's no surprise that Kong was able to no-sell all of this stuff, but my gosh, it was really blatant in this first no-sell. As the match progresses, things kinda take a dark turn, we'll say. About a third of the way into the match here, Kong starts kicking Asari as Asari is down on the mat. So just to paint the picture for you, Asari is sitting up, facing away from Kong. Kong is behind her and pretty much just doing the Charlie Brown punting the football right into Asari's back. These kicks were pretty goddamn stiff. They moved Asari across the ring a good 6 inches with every kick.
It's still real to me, damn it.
This is how hard these kicks were. And that was the beginning. After that, things got very much out of hand. Kong dishing out a suplex, then pulling Asari up on a 1 count. And then this crazy kind of, I guess you could maybe call it a modified pile driver. I don't know what the hell it was, but it dealt the same kind of damage as a pile driver, putting your head to the mat.
But actually looked tougher to pull off.
Yes, it did.
Especially for a shmoo.
Yeah. Again, pulling Asari up on a 1 count after that, then hits and kicks multiples of both, all just stiff as hell. Then a splash with another pull-up on the 1 count. Asari attempts a rally. Kong no-sells everything once again, not budging an inch on any of these hits that Asari attempts to make. Asari does manage to dodge another splash, and then follows up with an attempted corkscrew moonsault that looked phenomenal in execution, but only found the mat on landing. Kong stands Asari up, and then does a 360-degree backhand. I'm not sure if that is what the real name of this move is, but her body spins a full 360 degrees to get the maximum amount of force and velocity behind this backhand, stiff as hell. And this is what gets a pinfall and 3 count for the victory. My God, it looks like as they're more or less dragging Asari out of the ring that she might have a broken nose and lost a tooth or two, going by the blood and the fact that the referees were trying to pick stuff up and clean up the ring before we moved on. Well, goddamn, boys, I did not expect to see the match that we saw here. This was sheer fucking brutality, and I'm not sure you could even call it a match. This was more of a squash match, but I think it was Aja Kong's best match so far. Ryan, what did you think of this?
My lord, this was a fucking beatdown. I agree. It started out, Asari looked great with her gymnastics. I mean, it looked fast and impressive, but then the moment that Kong no-sold that crossbody, and it looked good.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the no-sell in that situation was appropriate.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the way Asari bounced off of her to the ground, and then the brutality began. You know, I never watched much Japanese stuff, but I could only gather this is the Japanese strong style that they speak of, because I've not seen anything like this in the WWF ever. People just flat out punching each other and kicking each other with full force. I was shocked, absolutely shocked by it. And I have to agree that this is heads and shoulders above any other Aja Kong match that we've seen. These two people have clearly worked together many, many times. But if I'm Asari, I'd never want to fucking work with her again. That last backhand was just fucking brutal. And then you see her face is bleeding. I mean, she's got color going on. She didn't need a razor blade for that. I can almost guarantee it. I was absolutely astonished by this match. I was going in, just dreading it, expecting another boring, shitty match. Instead, I got a fucking gore fest.
Yeah, I don't have much to add that you guys haven't said already. I mean, just the brutality, my God. The Wrestling Observer did confirm that Asari had a broken nose from this match.
It's no surprise.
Yeah, but the thing that really annoyed me here was, I understand they're near the end of it, but the commentary really should have sold this as a brutal beatdown if they're going to build a program with Aja Kong and Alundra Blaze. Like, my God, look at what she's doing to this Asari girl. Yeah. You're next, Alundra,
What happened to Shawn Michaels was nothing.
Yes. Yeah. Could have built some sort of a legitimate program, but instead they're talking about random shit, like one of the fat boys died, and like it's just some other stupid shit that has nothing to do with the match.
And by the way, Vince McMahon will be back on America Online. Remember how well that went last time?
To talk down on all of us, yeah.
Yeah.
The match was brutal, and the commentary was also brutal.
Yeah, 100% agreed. The best that we got out of commentary on this was Vince making a couple references to, well, there's a couple potatoes here in the ring. And you're right, Joe. He should have really sold this because, from all that we know about Alundra Blaze and how good of a worker she is and how she can hang with pretty much anybody, I would have loved to, not that I'm, that violent of a person or a sadist or anything like that, but if this is the kind of match that Aja Kong can have working stiff, then I would love to see this match with Alundra Blaze working just as stiff. That would be fucking amazing to watch, I think.
Agree. And I have to say, Joe, that was a great point about commentary because I didn't even really pay attention. I was just paying attention to this fucking wreck that was happening in the ring, that I wasn't paying much attention to the commentary. But you're absolutely right. Why were they not emphasizing the brutality that was happening in the ring? Like, it was so clear. Maybe it's a PG thing with, USA that they didn't want to play it up, but man.
Yeah. Well, I almost wonder, too, if Alundra was already gone at this point because she shows up on Nitro next week.
Yeah.
WWF tapings are so fucked up and out of order. She could have been gone by this point. So maybe that's why they decided to just talk about potatoes and fat boys.
You know what? Whenever I was doing my factual stuff for this episode, I'm pretty sure, I will say that I am 95% sure that this Raw was originally recorded on November 21st. So a lot of lead time between recording and airing on this one. And just, totally brutal. My goodness. I actually, whenever I got done, had to text a friend of mine that is not part of the podcast because, we have the rule here that we try not to talk about this stuff ahead of time. But I texted a friend of mine and said, I just watched a large Japanese woman beat the ever-loving dog shit out of a small Japanese woman. I couldn't believe it. All right, well, somebody that really needs to have the ever-loving dog shit beat out of him is Todd Pettingzoo. He's back! The charismatic, the flamboyant, heartbreak kid, Shawn Michaels. Get over here and let me suck your dick, buddy.
The sad part is that voice is not far off. I mean, it's ridiculous, but he really does sound like that. The mullet cutting is, thank God, because they're showing him from the side here. It's like, oh man.
I mean, it gives him a shred of credibility back.
Yes.
But
yeah. And whatever shred that is immediately dismissed by the view in profile of Todd Pettingzoo. What a meathead this guy is. The big question on everybody's minds is, how is Shawn Michaels feeling physically? And here is where the what the fuck for me begins. Shawn starts describing his current state of health, insisting he's healthy and fine, while also slurring words, briefly forgetting words, and blending sentences while doing so. If this was a work, which I'm sure, a good portion of it was, this was done extremely well because while he's denying it, he certainly sounds brain damaged to me. And that's speaking as somebody that has worked in a medical setting with brain damaged people. Pettingzoo throws it out there that everybody is talking about Shawn's physical condition. But, as Vince pointed out to us last week, we're all a bunch of blood-sucking parasites that drive Shawn Michaels to do these things to himself. So Pettingzoo says that he's going to ignore the concerns for Shawn's health and go straight to the real question. When can Shawn return to the ring? When can Shawn go back to abusing himself for our disgusting gratification? If it were up to Shawn, he would return today. But there are doctors out there, I would note probably Dr. Unger, disagreeing. So the final answer from Shawn on that question is that he hopes to return soon. Pettingzoo just can't get enough of gobbling the cock, though. He states that it must be great to be Shawn Michaels, and then lists all of the reasons why it would be great to be Shawn Michaels. Hear that as all of the reasons why Pettingzoo would just love to be a cock holster. This is where things go downhill, because somehow this question, this line of questioning, becomes a perceived hit piece on Shawn Michaels. Shawn gets defensive and pissy and slurs his words more while kind of dodging the question, but also giving the ultra-uber defensive answers that you would expect that are both non-committal and just saucy enough to keep people interested. And that's more or less the end of this here. We braked commercial to end the segments, and we have to talk about it. Joe, please, what did you think of this Shawn Michaels interview?
1995 Shawn Michaels is not a babyface. He's just not. And this is showing how uncomfortable he is being a babyface, I think. I want the 1997 Shawn Michaels, asshole, DX, suck it, making motions of sucking cock and fondling balls. That is Shawn Michaels, not this. Like, this is just so fake and ridiculous. Shawn is arguably the best wrestler in the company right now, but his babyface run here is just, I don't know, it just doesn't work. Like, I get people like him, but this isn't a mistake like Lex Luger and Diesel was, but it's kind of along those lines a little bit, I think. It's very forced. And I think it would have been great if Todd starts the questioning. He mentions Shawn not being WWF champion. He threw that little dig in at Shawn. And I feel like they should have taken the opportunity for Shawn to just blow up on Todd when he said that, instead of the whole emotional, I don't want to retire route that he took. So it's a little confusing because I guess he's just dodging the question of talking about retirement.
I thought that this interview wasn't bad, especially with, like you were saying, Bartlett, if it was all a work on Shawn's part, the slurring and messing up of words. I thought it played in well into his denial of his neurological issue. I also loved him starting off thanking all of us fans that Vince McMahon blamed for his condition last week. That was nice because, Shawn still likes us, even if Vince wants to blame us. And then we needed a cleanup on aisle 2 after Petting Zoo just gushes all over fucking Shawn Michaels. It was obscene almost. I wanted to cover my eyes. That's how disgusting it was, how much he was gushing over him, until he dropped the line about retirement. And then Michaels just goes off on him, basically calling him a gotcha piece of shit journalist. And then we leave the interview with Petting Zoo just sitting there looking like a fucking schmuck after Michaels just berated him. So I thought this kind of worked. I agree with Joe in that Michaels is certainly much, much better as a heel, or to be honest, why not give him the tweener role that Diesel has right now? Because, that's basically what Shawn Michaels will become in a few years. He's going to become that anti-hero. Yeah. That's the natural position of someone like Shawn Michaels. He's not a babyface. I completely agree with you on that, but I thought this segment worked.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and with pretty much everything you guys have said here. It did its work as far as the story goes. I am not as big of a fan of Shawn Michaels as other people are, and that's not a dig on Shawn. He is a fantastic, phenomenal wrestler. I am not looking to take anything away from him. It's just this whole thing with him and his injury and the way that they are just pushing him to the fucking moon and gushing day and night, coming constantly over this guy. That's the kind of thing that rubs me the wrong way. And I don't fault Shawn for that in the least bit. It's not his fault that he's a fantastic wrestler that Vince McMahon just so happens to see so much of himself in.
I felt like I had to take a shower after Petting Zoo got done talking about it.
Yeah.
Just the forced push.
Yeah.
It's just like Luger and Diesel, and now it's Shawn Michaels. Just forcing it when you don't have to.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that is the forced push killed Luger. With Diesel, you could arguably say that the forced push worked, but it tied down Diesel from something that could have been 10 times better, as we've seen already since they kind of unshackled him. And then with, like you say, Joe, with Shawn Michaels, he doesn't need it. He's that damn good. He doesn't need a push. He's getting himself over every time he's in the ring.
And it makes you wonder, is Vince just so used to having to force these people down our throats to try and get us to cheer for him that he doesn't know how to properly handle an actual superstar? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like he wants his main guy, his top guy, to be a celebrity. Mm-hmm. So bad. And it's like, well, sometimes they're not. They're just great wrestlers and, they work for a wrestling crowd, but don't try to push them into celebrity status.
Everyone's not Hulk Hogan or The Rock.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Excellent points all on that. Moving along now to a neat video package I didn't really note anything specific about it, but this is just full of promos and voiceovers from both Bret Hart and the British Bulldog. Some of it's repeating information, some of it's just a touch brand new as far as rewording old promos and old information to get us hyped for their upcoming championship match. You know, it did its job. It was a fairly quality segment for what it was. That takes us straight into our next match. Ahmed Johnson defeats Rick Stockhauser by pinfall in 1 minute and 12 seconds. Ryan, when in our archives did we cover Rick Stockhauser as our Jobber of the Week?
Rick Stockhauser was our Jobber of the Week back on July 24th, 1995. He was in a segment with John Faulkner because they both only had a handful of actual wrestling matches under their belt. So I'll save you a little bit of time on this one. There's not much to go back and listen to about Rick Stockhauser.
All right. Thank you for that. Back in the match, Dean Douglas is there in the split screen to cut a decent enough promo for us while Ahmed is making his entrance, but I still just cannot get excited about Dean Douglas and Ahmed Johnson's match in Your House 5, no matter how they try to push it. Stockhauser attempts to get the match started with some heelish early attacks, but Ahmed is having none of it as he throws some punches, then whips Stockhauser to the ropes. I have no idea if this was just the way that Rick decided to sell it, or if it was just that Ahmed whipped him that fucking hard. But Stockhauser can barely keep his feet as he is going across the ring. As he gets to the ropes, he is able to adjust and get back into the running rhythm and comes back. But when he comes back, Ahmed picks him up for what was supposed to be a spine buster, but instead became a hip buster and was almost a skull off the top turnbuckle buster. This was botched very badly. He turned that spine buster around in the corner of the ring, the worst possible place to fucking do that. And because one good turn deserves another, they go and do it again. And I have to note here that throughout both of these sequences, I was literally wincing and flinching and saying, "Oh my God," out loud. This looked rough as hell. Thank God, though, the Tiger Bomb, or as it's now being called, the Pearl River Plunge, was worked correctly because I was honestly scared for Stockhauser's well-being going into it. And that move gives us the pinfall, 3 count, and an end to the carnage. Joe, please, what did you think of the second match in a row now where someone just beat the ever-loving shit out of someone?
Well, this was ugly. I mean, this was really hard to watch. Really hard to watch. I think, I've said before, this Ahmed Johnson run early on here really reminds me of a Goldberg type run.
Yeah.
Has he had a match that's been longer than 2 minutes?
It's becoming more and more true every time we see him.
Yeah. And this one, man, Stockhauser sucks. And Ahmed Johnson is just, he can't do much. It's not going to be scientific. And these two together, holy shit, was it bad.
I came out of this match kind of realizing why Rick Stockhauser's career was so short.
Because he couldn't walk again after this.
Yeah, this was ugly. Ahmed Johnson, yeah, he did his best Aja Kong here and just beat the living piss out of Rick. Those spine busters, I felt them. My spine still fucking hurts after watching those. And I agree, that Tiger Bomb or the Pearl River Driver, whatever the fuck it's called now, that came off clean, thankfully, because Stockhauser could not take another blow like he took earlier and maybe survive. We've been really loving Ahmed Johnson's beginnings here, and he does look like just a really strong beast, but the more and more we see him, I'm starting to see what all of these interviews I've listened to over the years are talking about. You know, he's a little bit rough around the edges and possibly a little dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said here. And the only thing that I would add is that in my mind, as I'm watching this, the emotion that I feel is, you've both seen Shawshank Redemption, I'm sure.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that scene at the very beginning where the fat guy has his freak out and they drag him out of the cage and beat him to death with a stick. Well, while that's going on, there's somebody in the background that goes, "God damn." That's how I felt watching this match. I was that guy going, "God damn." Just watching somebody fucking murder somebody else. It was rough.
And Rick Stockhauser never wrestled again.
We hardly knew ye.
Yeah. Oh, man. Poor guy.
I don't know if you guys remember, but just thinking back in my mind, there has been a number of jobbers whose last match was against Ahmed Johnson.
Oh, geez.
Really? Oh, my God. Well, it's not surprising.
So I don't know if that's just a coincidence or not, but
A lot of men died in that ring. Well, he is not a man of words, Ryan. He's a man of action.
He is. He is that. Before we move on, there is a brief interlude of a great Karate Fighters commercial, but that's followed up by an even better commercial for electronic Hot Shots basketball.
Hell yeah.
Loved seeing that.
my brother got that for Christmas one year, I remember.
I had it too. I played the shit out of that thing.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, toys and video game commercials are going to be the theme of this episode. 'Tis the season. They were really getting their ad revenue in on this one.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
Back in the ring, Jerry Lawler is going to interview Ahmed Johnson at ringside after his match. And for the start of this, the King just basically shit talks throughout all of this. This was not a professional way to conduct an interview, if I do say so myself. But then Ahmed cuts a not that eloquent, but damn good, honest promo saying that Dean Douglas shouldn't have signed on for the match, but also telling Lawler to more or less sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up. Completely believable from Ahmed Johnson here. Just ever so briefly, guys, Ryan first, what did you think of this material from Ahmed Johnson?
I thought it was a solid promo from Ahmed Johnson here, and I especially liked him calling out the King for continuing to just talk for Dean Douglas, because that was the first thing I thought of when the King said, well, Dean said this. I was like, this is just like last week. All you're doing is saying what Dean said. So I thought that was good for him to call him out on that, and I thought it was a solid promo.
Yeah, I think he made Lawler look like a little bitch, which that's what it was meant to do.
Go take a seat.
Yeah.
Yep.
And especially very realistic after seeing him just kill Rick Stockhauser.
Because, I mean, do you want to get in the ring with him? No.
Right.
After he broke that right hip, he said, we need to even that out. So he went in and broke the left.
He should have said to Lawler, man, you got some brass balls. Did you just see what happened in the ring?
That man can't fucking walk.
Oh, man. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. You know, Ryan, you mentioned it earlier. It's great that we have been able to see Ahmed from the very beginning here. It's great to see his stutter steps as he progresses through his relatively short career, all things considered. But yeah, it's things like this match and then this promo to follow that it's kind of like icing on the cake for it all. It's great to just see all of it. I'm so happy that we're able to do this. Well, don't forget, though, in all of this talk of how fun it's been with Ahmed Johnson, we've got that Bret Hart Bob Backlund match coming up later.
Don't forget.
And also, Psycho Sid, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, and the 1-2-3 Kid will be here as they're preparing for tag team action against Razor Ramon and Marty Jannetty. But next, let's head on over to Doc's Cocaine Jam. Doc has a denim Shawn Michaels jacket. Only $60 for this. This is the same jacket that we saw Barry Dudensky selling a couple weeks ago. Doc also shows us The Undertaker, the Diesel, and the Bret Hart versions. I still think that is ridiculously overpriced.
It's still obscene looking, and I still want the Undertaker one.
But then another commercial. These are Santa Clauses marching in for a police lineup with Little Billy on the other side of the glass to pick out, and I quote, the one who was bad, end quote. It looks like we've got Hakushi, Razor Ramon, and Ahmed Johnson here dressed up as Santa Clauses at the very least. There was a fourth guy that was a wrestler that I could not identify through the beard and hat. I'm guessing it might have been Fatu, but I am not positive on that at all. Billy picks out the one guy amongst the crowd that just so happens to look like a kitty diddler and lets us all know that guy told him that smoking was good, Santa Claus wasn't real, and a couple other things, all equally egregious, as the wrestlers proceed to beat the shit out of the guy while the cops present either laugh or
turn their back
or turn a blind eye to the violence being perpetrated against someone in their custody. Yup, this was just wholly representative of the problems of the American criminal justice system here. Happy holidays from the World Wrestling Federation is the point that you are to get from this.
Yeah, this is what Christmas is all about.
Absolutely.
You filthy animal.
Beating diddlers in police custody. But wait, there's more. There's a sports-type commercial with what appeared to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, classy Freddie Blassie.
That is exactly who that was.
Yeah.
At the lectern, in front of a room of superstars. This is meant to simulate a coach in front of a room full of football players, and they are getting the pep talk. The heel locker room, if I do say so. These were all heels there present listening to Freddie. And it's the WWF Raw Bowl. That's all we know about it so far. Between the information we got the last time they talked about it and this, I still don't know what the Raw Bowl really is. Back in the ring, Vince McMahon is there to interview the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. He's present along with the 1-2-3 Kid and Psycho Sid. The $1 Million Man kicks this interview off, calling Razor Ramon a greaseball. Always entertaining. And then the $1 Million Man also says that there are doubting Thomases out there who don't think that this tag team combo, meaning the Kid and Psycho Sid, is going to work. You can count me among them. The 1-2-3 Kid gives us his best heel promo, and it's not working. Somebody needs to tell the Kid that yelling what you're saying as loud as you can, at least as loud as you can without your voice cracking, does not make a heel promo. And then Sid gets on the mic. Sid's promo is not as good as it could have been at the start. He has to play along with these rules of being part of the $1 Million Corporation. Unfortunately, he has to stick within that storyline, but as soon as he gets the major points of that out of the way, he promptly goes off with some insanity. I have to admit that the second half of Sid's promo was thoroughly entertaining and exactly what I look for from Psycho Sid. So before we move along here, there was a lot given to us here, a lot to unpack. Joseph, what did you think of Doc's Cocaine Jam, the new commercials we got, and the $1 Million Corporation interview?
Well, the Cocaine Jam was nothing but denim jackets. We didn't really talk about In Your House at all very much there, so not much to say there. And the commercials were very entertaining, although, yeah, we don't know what the hell the Raw Bowl is still, but I guess we'll find out. And the 1-2-3 Kid and Sid interview with Ted DiBiase and Vince McMahon, the Kid just comes off as just a pipsqueak here.
Yeah.
I know Sean Waltman can be a heel. Like this man took shits in people's bags and food and stuff from what we hear from stories from wrestlers, but it's not working. He even told Ted to talk for him at the beginning. He's like, "Go ahead, Ted."
Yeah.
both him and Sid, to me, were just overacting on this. Like, I actually laughed at the end, like, when Sid was just spewing random crazy shit, and then they started, like, hugging and, like, just doing all that weird shit. It was like, I felt like I was watching Nicolas Cage in Vampire's Kiss. Overacting and laughing my ass off.
I already gave my my 2 points on the cocaine jam. I still want the ugly Undertaker denim jacket. And that's all that segment was about. Then we go over to the public service announcement and then the commercials. And yeah, they were just kind of fun to watch. You know, they brought you back to a place and time, and that was fun. The interview with Ted DiBiase, Sid, and the Kid. The Kid's promo was really bad. I mean, it was just shitty. Like you said, you can't just scream, especially when you're the Kid and your voice sounds like the fast food worker from the fucking Simpsons. It just didn't work at all. Sid was a little bit better, especially the second half of his promo. I enjoyed when he started saying that, you know, Jannetty, I'm not going to enjoy this. And then he starts laughing and says, no, that's a lie. I'm going to enjoy it. Yeah, that was good. But the Kid's was really bad.
I'm gonna kick your ass.
Tell him, Ted.
That's right, Ted. You talk for me. Yeah, completely agreed with all of that. The only thing that I would add is that it's very fitting that a cocaine jam would be nothing but denim, baby. Moving along. Apparently, Yokozuna wants to go after the Intercontinental title. Good for him. He deserves it, I guess. This is what I kind of perceive, I guess, as a logical step. He was in the championship picture. He's no longer anymore. That doesn't mean that the monster can't go after the IC belt. Next week on Monday Night Raw, Yokozuna will be taking on Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental title. That takes us into our final match of the night. Bret the Hitman Hart defeats Bob Backlund by disqualification in 11 minutes and 12 seconds. We can't get to the match yet. We have to pack in as many toy commercials as possible. There were at least 7 different products being pitched here between actual visual commercials and then Vince doing voiceover commercials leading into the match. Again, this is the Christmas season. I can't say that I'm surprised, but at the same time, I'm kind of surprised at just how blatant they were making this. And then, when we just weren't able to delay it any longer, the bell rings. The match kicks off with a lot of mat grappling attempts from Backlund. So, Ryan, I wanted to ask you, as our resident expert on actual real wrestling as a sport, what would you call what Backlund was doing here?
My very first comment about this match is addressing this, so I'll just read off my first line I had. What he's trying to do here is, it looks like he's going for a couple single leg takedowns. But for someone who's supposed to be a collegiate wrestling champion, they were some of the most piss poor single leg takedowns I have ever fucking seen. So, I mean, I don't know where the fuck this guy wrestled, but his coaches should be fucking shot.
Or at least forced to wrestle Ahmed Johnson.
Yeah. A worse fate.
Oh, my God. Thank you for that. I was looking forward to your contribution on that because it was very clear that he was going for, you know, a shoot look.
He was definitely going for these single leg takedowns, but the fact that Bret Hart was able to defend them in the fashion he did, man.
All right. Well, back in the match here, Bob Backlund is white as hell. I can't put it any other way than that. The man's been dipped in bleach. While this match is going on, Lawler is attempting to go over and talk to Diana Smith, the wife of the British Bulldog and the sister of Bret Hart. I'm not going to lie, as I said before, Diana is a looker. She is quite an attractive woman, but once she opens her mouth and starts talking, she is definitely Stu Hart's daughter. You can't deny that one bit. When asked about the Bulldog's current bad attitude and affiliation with Jimmy Cornette, however, Diana, in my opinion at least, hits it out of the park. This was simple storytelling, but she just clearly states that, well, nobody was listening to the Bulldog before, and now they are. And as far as Cornette goes, well, the Bulldog wasn't going anywhere before, and Jim Cornette has got the Bulldog a title shot already.
And a good way to just stand by your man, you know?
Point for Diana here. It wasn't the most flashy delivery, but you cannot argue with that logic. Back in the ring, this match has been nothing but trading holds so far, and I don't know if I'm biased because of Backlund, but this match, to this point in my notes at least, has been boring as hell, with virtually nothing of note to happen in it. And as a matter of fact, I hate to admit it, but I had to go scoop the litter box real quick. On the main event of a go-home show leading into a pay-per-view.
There was an odor coming from the box and your TV.
There was. The Bulldog comes out to distract Bret just long enough to let Backlund put the chicken wing on Bret. This draws the disqualification and the victory for the Hitman. But things continue, although not in a very exciting fashion. Frankly, really disappointing, as Backlund lays there with the chicken wing locked onto Bret. Just lays there, locked on, side of the ring. Yeah, the officials, they're milling about. They're attempting to get Backlund to release the hold, and the Bulldog, he's doing the best that he can. He paces around trying to, jaw at the crowd a teensy bit, and then occasionally kicks Bret as he comes back around the ring. But that's pretty much it. I can't think of a better way to put it. We have the ending of a go-home show that is supposed to get us ready for this championship match with Bret laying in the ring with Bob Backlund. And that's it. We fade to black. Ryan, please get us going on our final match here, and also the way that Raw ended to take us into the pay-per-view.
This was fucking terrible.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we expected. Last week when we heard that it was going to be Bret Hart and Bob Backlund, we saw this before, remember? It was terrible. And so was this. First, we start off with what I already covered, Bob Backlund's terrible single leg takedown, and then it's holds. And that's it. Holds and holds and holds for the next 10 minutes. I have not been this bored in quite some time watching a match. It's sad because we know the Hitman could put out something great, but he's being handicapped with Bob Backlund here, the fucking senior citizen. And this is just terrible. After, I don't know, a quarter of the match, Bob Backlund just starts working on the Hitman's arm, I guess to soften it up for the chicken wing, but that's all we get for the next 5 minutes is just holds and wrenches on the Hitman's arm. Thankfully, Vince and Lawler, they interrupt the match and tell us about Frank Sinatra's 80th birthday, and I'm happy to hear something other than this boring fucking match. We also learned Stu Hart turned 80, so there we go, same age as Sinatra, him and Stu. That was interesting. Then we come back to the match, and what do you know? It's still slow, boring holds. That's all this match was. Okay, we get a DQ at the end because of the Bulldog, but that's kind of stupid and worthless as well. And then we end with some more chicken wing on Bret Hart in the ring. And I thought the rest of this Raw was at least solid. I mean, there was nothing fantastic, but we had some solid stuff in this Raw. But then we just fucking blew it out at the end and just fucking shit all over the place going into the pay-per-view. This is the most boring thing I've seen in a fucking long time.
I will start with a few positive comments and then talk about all of the bad ones. But Bartlett, how long did you say this was again?
This one clocked in at 11 minutes and 12 seconds.
Okay. So I have to admit, at least 2 or 3 times leading into this match, knowing this was happening, I pressed pause on my TV to see how much time was left, because I was hoping that this would be 10 minutes or less, and it was damn close. So that was a good thing. I didn't want to have 20 minutes left and have this match.
Yeah.
And thank goodness this was not an I Quit match again, because that was awfully horrible to watch. My last positive comment is that seeing Bret Hart come out wearing that belt was so refreshing. I do have to say that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But then the bell rang. The interview with Diana, I guess she's trying to be a heel, but nobody really cares. I don't know. I kind of understand, the stand by your man stuff, but at the same time, it's her fucking brother,
Yeah.
Bob Backlund is just so fucking boring to watch. He has been since he came back. He spends half the match outside the ring, just walking around. His kickouts are so fucking lazy and pathetic. Like every time he kicks out, it's like, did he even kick out? Like I can't even tell. It's so bad. I did like the move where Bret Hart had the chicken wing on him and he hit the ropes. I did like that. It was something a little bit different. And the chicken wing itself, it's not a bad move, but the creepy buildup that he does to get into it is just so obnoxious. And he does it the whole fucking match.
Yeah, it's the old man. I'm going to get you.
yeah, like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Coming for you. And they obviously just overdo it. They're calling it an infectious disease at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
So they're ruining a move that's actually not terrible. But yeah, this was such a boring match, and the commentators clearly agree with us based on the fact that they were talking about the Grateful Dead, Frank Sinatra,
Stu Hart,
Diana and Stu Hart, and all this other shit. And I do have to say, Jerry Lawler had a pretty funny line when he said, "Who cares about Jim Ross? He'll never run for president. The only thing he'll run for is lunch." And my last comment here is, so Bulldog comes in full ring gear, okay, which is just fucking weird. Like, I understand they're doing their tapings and stuff, but it's just fucking weird for a guy to come out in full ring gear just to interfere in a match. But why is Bob Backlund okay with this? Like, the British Bulldog just screwed him out of a chance at winning the title.
No, non-title.
This was non-title?
Yeah, remember Bob Backlund flipped out last week when he found out that it was non-title.
That's right. He screws him out of the win, and so like the storytelling aspect of it doesn't really make too much sense when you think about that too.
Yeah, it's obvious that we all agree on this. This was just the drizzling shits. Something that neither of you addressed, though, and if I could just get a brief word out of the both of you with Ryan going first, this is the go home. This is what is intended, especially with the Bulldogs' interference. That's the main event at the upcoming pay-per-view. Do you feel more interested going into that? Are you more inclined to shell out the money to buy their pay-per-view on the strength of this go-home finisher?
I guess I halfway answered it in that I thought that leading up to this match, it was a pretty strong Raw, but this just ruined it. And no, if I did accidentally place an order in the middle of this Raw, I then canceled it by the time it was done.
Yeah, I don't give a rat's ass about the pay-per-view at this point.
Yeah.
And I mentioned last week that they just totally ignored the fact that these two guys are fucking related to each other. They just half-assed it. They could have built a story here for several weeks, but they just half-assed it. Like, nobody cares. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares. Yeah. They half-ass it with this interview with Diana. Like, oh, let's just get Diana involved and we're good to go. It's like, come on, you guys got to do something better with that.
Yeah, completely agreed with both of you. Nobody cares, kid. I would not have shelled out money for this. So, as I said, our episode has faded to black. We're going to take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
For my highlight, I will give it to the Owen Hart and Jeff Hardy match. And I'm going to give an honorable mention to all of the advertisements because these advertisements, while they were shoved down our throats, they brought back a lot of good memories for me. So I enjoyed seeing them.
They did.
And for a low light, just Bob Backlund in general. Like I don't want to see him on my TV anymore. I really don't. I've seen enough.
Yeah, our highlights and lowlights are going to kind of parallel each other here. Highlight, Owen Hart, Jeff Hardy match. This was just a fun match to watch, and Jeff Hardy has impressed just about every time we saw him. So good stuff there. Highlight. Low light, the final match with Bret Hart and Bob Backlund. It was just an absolute snore fest, and sadly was exactly what we expected going into it.
Yeah, you know, I can definitely see why you guys are going with Owen Hart, Jeff Hardy, but at the same time, you know, that was pretty much what I expected out of that. The only real chance in this episode that had was maybe of being a low light if they had both disappointed, which they did not. For my highlight, I had to go with Aja Kong and Chaparita Asari. Just the sheer fucking brutality of this match.
Yeah.
It had me interested. I'm sorry, I'm like butchering my words trying to think of the right way to put it. Very few matches that we have seen recently have had me that engaged. It was like a car wreck. You can't look away even though you probably should and part of you wants to. It was interesting. It was engaging. My God, I just wanted to see how badly she was going to get hurt by the end of it. But for the low light, I do agree. This final match, it's readily apparent to anybody that is a regular listener of our show. We knew this was going to happen. We called it. We didn't like it back then. We don't like it now. This was an abortion of an idea. And on top of that, the especially shitty part of it is that this was the finisher of our go home show. God damn it. This is supposed to get us excited. This is supposed to get us ready to shell out the money for the pay-per-view, and that did not happen. All right. Well, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around December 11th, 1995 for us?
I do. The first article in the Observer newsletter was that an Army soldier was charged with the beating of Shawn Michaels.
Oh, just one.
Oh!
Douglas Griffith, 23 years old, was charged with second-degree assault. Michaels and the WWF initially did not want to press charges, but Michaels changed his mind. And just going back, the initial
Sonny
reason...
convinced him.
Yeah. Nursed him back to health and then told him to press charges.
Yeah.
But going back to when it happened, I think that they were not wanting to press charges because they were afraid of breaking kayfabe since him and British Bulldog were together. Dave Meltzer is reporting there is word that the $1 Million Belt will be revived and would be going to a newcomer to the company who would get it.
Wonder who that is.
Certainly smells like Steve Austin, although it could be the return of Jeff Jarrett. A little bit of credit there to Meltzer for having that inside information. But then he says, when people used to say that Austin was going to be the next Ric Flair, I always disagreed and thought it was more likely he'd be the next Ted DiBiase.
Way to go, Dave.
He would want to take that comment back for sure.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette had a meeting with Vince McMahon where he was offered a spot helping to book, but no word on if he has accepted that or not. So that is already in the works. Lots of rumors about the Smoking Guns leaving the WWF. And we obviously know that is bullshit, so not much there, but I guess they were thinking about leaving at one point. Aja Kong worked one of the stiffest matches of the year on Raw against Asari, finishing off by breaking her nose with a backhand punch. Kong got over with the live crowd, but it appears from commentary that Vince is not sold since he paid little attention and didn't try to get Kong over as anything but a comedy figure.
Yep.
And the last thing, and I wanted to ask you guys, did you notice anything with how bad the fake crowd noise was on this episode?
I didn't.
No.
I did not either, but Dave Meltzer commented that how incredibly fake the crowd noise sounded during and after the Bret Hart-Bob Backlund match. It was funny that he said that because I actually noted that the crowd was dead during that match. Like, they didn't give a shit. So I didn't notice the fake crowd noise, but he's pointing it out here as being more noticeable than usual. And that is all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. It's illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. And just add an @gmail.com to that if you want to get a hold of us. While you're there, out in podcast land, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at In Your House 5 with matches featuring Buddy Landell, Henry O. Godwin, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.